you guys. It is August 20th at about 5:30 in the evening, and I'm pretty certain my water just broke. So we are waiting for Riker's parents to take us to the hospital. And as soon as I have more information, I will let you guys know. We are very excited. We have everything packed and ready to go. Here we go. I just wanted to add, I had a big gush of fluid come out and I am still leaking. So that's why I'm pretty certain my water just broke. So once we get to the hospital and get admitted, I will let you guys know of any other information once I find out. Hello, you guys. I am 9 days postpartum now, as of today that I'm filming this. But I wanted to finish my labor and delivery story. I was only able to get a few clips of us in the hospital, just because a lot happened during my labor, and I wasn't able to film as much as I wanted. There were constantly people in my room, nurses, I should rephrase that. There were always nurses in my room. I was only alone for maybe 5 minutes before another nurse would come in, or my nurse would come in, or a doctor would come in. It was kind of a lot. So I'm going to show, so I've already showed the clip of before we went to the hospital. As you guys know, my water broke, or at least I was 100% certain my water broke because I had 2 really big gushes, and then I was trickling the entire way to the hospital. After that, we got to the hospital, and they had to test to make sure that it was my water breaking. If for some reason the test came back negative, they were still going to keep me the hour, and if I didn't dilate, they would just send me home. So the nurse I got she was very sweet. She was probably my favorite nurse that I had, if I'm being honest. I got there, she had tested me, and she was like, well, she'd also checked to see how dilated I was. I was still at a 3 and 80% effaced. But when she checked me, she was like, I'm pretty certain your water broke. I still have to test, but I'm feeling more baby head than I am sac. So that's a good sign already. And he feels like he's right there. He's like ready to come out almost. He was super, super low. So she did the test, and she goes, for some reason, if it comes back negative, we'll keep you the hour, but I don't want to send you home if your water broke, especially because how you're describing it, I'm like pretty certain your water broke. So I don't, like, if it comes back negative and after the hour you still haven't dilated or changed or anything, then I'm going to test you again, and if that comes back negative, unfortunately, I have to send you home after that. But I do want to do a second test just in case it comes back negative this first time. So, she leaves and comes back a few minutes later, like 5-10 minutes later, And she goes, so the test came back negative, which I don't understand. The person who checked the tests had even asked my nurse what she'd asked my nurse if it felt like my water had broken, and my nurse was completely honest and was like, yeah, I feel more baby head than I do sac. Like, especially with how she's describing how it broke, I'm pretty certain her water broke. So she came into the room, she's like, unfortunately, it came back negative. And she was like, she's like, sometimes this can happen because if you take too long, or if you take a while to get to the hospital, it's almost like all of your water came out of you before you got here, if that makes sense. So it'll test negative because there's not enough fluid, but not all of your water came out because baby is still blocking quite a bit of that water. She goes, so we'll watch you for an hour. If you feel another gush, let me know. I'll come in, we'll look, and we'll go from there. So I wait the hour. She goes, and if there's nothing within the hour, I'll check you. And then, again, if you haven't progressed any farther, then we will test you again, and we'll go from there. And I was like, okay. So I wait the entire hour, and literally that entire hour, I didn't have any gushes of water. I felt like I was still trickling water, but apparently that wasn't the case. They put a plastic sheet underneath me just in case I gushed again or even trickled water. But it was still dry. I still felt very wet down there, so I guess that was just it. She came back in after the hour, checked me. I was still a 3. I hadn't progressed. I was still 80% effaced. At this point, I'm getting really irritated because I was in a week before at a 3 and 80% effaced, having multiple contractions for over 24 hours, and I still wasn't dilating or progressing. And then my water broke a week later, literally a week later. And I'm still getting told I'm not dilating. We don't know for sure if it actually is your water because the test came back negative. So at this point, I'm getting told everything I don't want to hear, and it's sounding like they're going to send me home. So she brings somebody else in, and she goes, I'm still feeling baby's head, and I'm not feeling a sac, really, at all. So she brings somebody else in to check to make sure that I hadn't progressed. The other nurse did confirm that I hadn't progressed past a 3, and I was still 80% effaced. She had the other nurse do the test again, the swab for my water breaking. She goes, she's able to examine that, so she's gonna look at that if she's not busy real quick, and then after that, it's either we keep you or we're gonna send you home. And I was like, okay. At this point, I am prepared to just be sent home. And my husband is very irritated because I went through 2 pairs of panties, 2 pairs of pants, because they were soaking wet with water or with liquid. And I know it wasn't pee because I went to the bathroom, went back to the living room to finish folding towels, and then I felt a pop and a gush of water. And I mean, like a gush of liquid come out of me. So at this point, I'm really irritated, and so is my husband, because my husband had seen one of those gushes happen because he was in the room when it happened. And he's getting pissed. And he's like, if they send us home, we know that this is your water. So if they send you home and you end up delivering at home, we can sue them because this is ridiculous. And I just felt really bad because this nurse is trying everything she can to keep me. But because I'm only 38 weeks, if my water hasn't broken and I haven't progressed within that hour, they won't start me on Pitocin to keep me and to kickstart my labor. So I was irritated as well because I'm like 100% certain my water broke, right? He's 100% certain that my water broke. So I'm waiting for, like, I'm literally sitting there. It feels like hours going by when it's just minutes, with waiting for them to come back with the results from the second swab. And all of a sudden, I feel another gush. So I hurried and hit the call button for my nurse. She literally came in like 5 or 10 seconds later. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm pretty certain she was walking to my room. But she comes in, and I, like, as soon as I see her, I'm like, I felt another gush, because I need to let her know that I felt it so that she can be like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty certain it's your water, and check. So she goes, well, that's good, because one test came back not negative, which was weird, but the second test, because they did 2 swabs, the second one that they examined, I guess the third one that they examined, came back positive. So 2 of them came back negative. The first swab that they did, or the first 2 swabs that they did at the beginning, when she first originally checked me at the beginning of the hour, had came back negative. And then the second set of swabs that they did, after the hour, one came back negative, the other came back positive. So they were deciding to keep me because one of them had proved that my water broke. She did check. There was a puddle of liquid under me. And it did look like amniotic fluid to her. So they kept me. Unfortunately, they did have to start me on Pitocin because I hadn't dilated by myself within that hour, which really frustrated me because I did not want Pitocin at all. I had a horrible experience with Pitocin with my daughter, and having it this time also just kind of proves I don't think my body can handle Pitocin. Because with Becky, they had to come in like every 5 minutes, if that, to turn it up, to turn it down, to turn it up, to turn it down, because it was either too strong or it was not strong enough. So it just became this weird, we couldn't find a correct number to put me at. This time, they knew my history from my daughter's birth, that they put me on Pitocin. I was on it for all of like 30 minutes to maybe an hour, especially with them coming in and turning it up to turn it down. When her heart rate dipped multiple times, my heart rate dipped a couple of times and slowly came back up. I was on oxygen the entire time with Becky because it's like I can't get enough oxygen inside me to get to her. So that became an issue. So they already knew that history, and I did let them know that because both of our heart rates kept dipping, it was either they do an emergency C-section or they give me an epidural to kind of numb the pain so that my body could relax through the contractions. And she goes, okay, we'll keep that in the back of our minds. You don't want an epidural this time, but if needed, it's kind of like a wait and see situation. And I was like, exactly. Like if something similar starts happening, then I want an epidural immediately. And she goes, okay. So then She starts me off. She starts me on Pitocin. She goes, I'm not going to go to a 4. I am worried that a 4 is going to be way too high. So, and we always start at a 4. She goes, I'm going to start you off at a 2 of Pitocin, and I'll monitor and see how that's going. So, they've gotten me hooked. They've gotten an IV in me. They've gotten blood work from me. They've gotten all this stuff. They started the Pitocin. She leaves, and about 2 minutes later, I'm not even kidding, she comes back into the room. I'm having a contraction, and it's like a long one, and it hurts. And I'm struggling to breathe through it because it just seems like it's not going away. So she comes in and she goes, are you just having like a really long contraction? Like, are you having a contraction? And I was like, it hurts. Like, I can barely get the words out. And I'm not even kidding. Like, she's staring at the screen while she asked me the question. And then all of a sudden, she turns to me and she goes, hey, there are going to be 3 other nurses coming in here, while she's putting something on my finger to monitor my pulse. And I'm going, wait, what? Because I'm still having this contraction. She immediately turned off the Pitocin. At this point, I have no clue what's going on because I can't see the screen or any of the numbers. And all of a sudden, three other nurses come rushing into my room. They are grabbing equipment, and my husband stands up and stands by me and is kind of like, what's going on? Because he didn't hear my nurse say that 3 other nurses were coming in, so he kind of panicked. And when 3 other people came in, he goes, oh my gosh, like, oh my god, what's happening? So he comes and stands by me, and I hear my nurse say his heart rate dipped down to 70. We gotta do something to get that back up. It's slowly, like, it's going up, but not as fast as they would like it, but not super slow to be too concerned. So she goes, okay, call the doctor, let him know. She's like, I literally only had her on Pitocin for 2 minutes, and it's only at a 2, and his heart rate's already dipping. So at this point, I'm keeping it together, but I'm starting to panic because this is starting to go the way that my first labor went with Rebecca. And she's now monitoring my pulse to make sure that my heart rate doesn't dip and all of that. They called the doctor while 3 other people went and grabbed like a whole bunch of stuff to check they were shoving stuff inside me to check everything to make sure baby was doing okay, all of that. It was nuts. So the doctor comes in and he goes, okay, send for the anesthesiologist to get an epidural in here. We'll see if we can relax her body with the contractions, kind of like they did with her first pregnancy. If his heart rate keeps dipping, we're going to end up having to do an emergency C-section. So the doctor comes over and he goes, hey, we are putting in a call for the anesthesiologist to come give you an epidural. And I'm going, okay. That's fine. Works for me. Numb the pain. He goes, now, you have a higher chance, because baby's heart rate keeps dipping, and with how far it dipped with just that first dip on the Pitocin, you are higher risk for an emergency C-section. So that's another reason why we are giving you the epidural, is because that way, when your baby's born, if we end up doing the emergency C-section, you'll be awake and you'll be able to see baby. because we don't want to have to completely put you under and you be completely asleep when your baby's born, because that would make us feel bad. That would make you feel like crap. We don't want that. And I'm going, okay. He goes, we're going to monitor you and watch your pulse. We're going to monitor baby. And if he just keeps dipping and they're really big dips, then we're just going to go to emergency C-section. If they're little dips, we'll just continue to monitor, make sure you're okay. But we'll just kind of watch and see. And at this point, I feel like my body has kind of failed me a little bit. I wanted to do a natural labor without an epidural, and at both times I've tried to do that, I've needed an epidural, and I've gotten really close to just needing a C-section because my body just can't handle it. So about 30 minutes, they ended up giving me, they just kind of watched, and they watched baby for a little bit while we waited for the anesthesiologist to get up to my room. They ended up having to give me I can't remember what it's called, but they ended up having to give me 2 different doses at 2 different times to stop my contractions, because every contraction I would have, baby's heart rate would dip. The anesthesiologist finally came in. My contractions were starting to get pretty painful because that second dose of whatever they gave me had worn off. It had gone through my system. My contractions had come back, and they were really bad to the point where I was making noise and through them, and or crying through them because they were pretty painful. So they gave me the epidural finally through contractions. I think it was a different person, but whoever did my epidural this time did a much better job of it this time than when I had it with Rebecca. So he actually waited longer for the numbing to set in, and then he goes, now you're gonna feel some pressure. It might hurt a little bit, but it shouldn't hurt too much because the numbing's there. And I'm like, okay. Didn't feel like a needle, which was really great. It just felt like a pinpoint pressure in just like that certain spot where it hit in my back. They actually had me sitting up while he put the epidural in, instead of where with Rebecca I was laying on my side the entire time, and I think that's what screwed it up. But he goes, then he even said, okay, I'm going to put the balloon in here soon. Again, you might feel some pressure, but it shouldn't be anything too bad. And I'm like, okay. So again, I feel just some pressure, nothing bad. He taped me up a bunch to keep it. He goes, if you feel like it's starting to wear off, you'll just hit this button. It'll kick in. Every 15 minutes, you can get a new dose. And I'm like, cool. Sounds good. Or, it'll add a new dose every 15 minutes, and if you feel like you need an extra one, go ahead and hit it. And I was like, okay. I literally waited until it was like, until I could feel contractions, and then I hit the button and kind of numbed it again. But it worked for a while. And then I'm going to show the clip that I got after that. Hey guys, it is 11:15 at night. Sorry, I am shaking. I have the epidural in, and these are labor shakes, so Riker had to run home real quick to get his jacket, but they gave me the epidural. We were having some issues with baby's heart rate. They also had to give me oxygen and add some, they had to pop something into my uterus to help give baby fluids. And then they had to give me oxygen. Baby is looking better now, but there is a slight possibility that if it dips too much again, we will just do an emergency C-section. So, there's that. I wanted to update you guys, but I might have to update later and add snippets after he's born to this. So I forgot to mention that I am at a 5 now, so I am progressing. But they did have to give me 2 different shots to stop the contractions due to his heart rate dipping. And they gave me the epidural in between both of those shots. So just wanted to add that. So I just showed you the clip of after my epidural, after getting my epidural. Baby's heart rate did keep dipping. They weren't big dips per se. My heart rate never dipped, which was really good. They think that the epidural really helps keep my body calm, which is why my heart rate never dipped. And then they did have to put a monitor on Toby's head while I was contracting, because the belly band to listen to his heart rate wasn't working anymore and was having a hard time keeping it there. So they had to put something on his head to monitor his heart rate a lot better. So I had like a few tubes up there with him to kind of monitor everything. I had to stay on my left side the entire time I was in labor, up until I gave birth. That's the only time I was on my back. The reason why is every time I would move, they wanted me to move from side to side every about 5 to 10 minutes to kind of help baby, and so I wasn't in like one spot the entire time. But every time I would move just a little, or every time I was on my right side, baby's heart rate would dip fast and significantly. So after they realized that I just couldn't move from my left side, that's where I stayed, because they were concerned that with how the cord was, which is what they thought, with how the cord was on my right side, it was preventing him from getting that oxygen he needed. They did end up putting me on oxygen. I was only on it for like 30 minutes, maybe an hour at the most, but I don't even think it was that long. Maybe 45 minutes at the most, but again, it wasn't that long. They came in every once in a while and checked to see where I was at. In 2 hours, or in 1 hour, I went from 3% dilated to 5% to 5 dilated. And then to 5 centimeters dilated. There we go. That's the word. And then after, because they checked me every hour, after an hour, I was still out of 5. So, but I was 100% effaced at that point. After another hour, I went from 5 centimeters to 7 centimeters dilated. They did put a peanut ball in between my thighs, or in between my knees, and in between they moved it from my knees to my ankles after about an hour, because I wasn't dilating any farther from 7. So they kind of had to figure it out. After another hour, I was 10 centimeters dilated, 100% effaced still, and ready to start pushing. The doctor did come in as they were checking me. And he wanted to check up on me to make sure I was doing okay. And he just kind of wanted to watch baby. And when he heard that I was 10 centimeters and 100% effaced, he was like, well, then I'm just gonna stay. He got all ready. He said, okay, we're gonna get the forceps out, because you're too far to do an emergency C-section now at this point. So you need to push him out fast, because his heart rate and everything, and with how the cord is, like, we need him out pretty quickly, because each contraction, his heart rate dips. So we got to push him out quick, otherwise I'm going to have to use forceps. And I was like, I don't want you to use forceps. He had them out just in case, but I did 3 different I only went through 3 contractions. I pushed 3 different times during each contraction. So 9 pushes all together, and baby boy came out. So I got him out pretty quickly. He weighed 5 pounds, 10 ounces, as you guys have probably seen on my Instagram. And he was 18 inches long. He was just a little, he's still so tiny. With how the cord was, it wasn't around his neck or anything, but it was putting pressure just in like a specific spot. So every time, and it was only because my water broke. So because my water broke with how the cord was, it just was putting pressure on a certain area that was making his heart rate dip during contractions and making it dip significantly when I was on that right side because of where it was. But he's okay. We made it through it. The next time I have a baby, I'm literally gonna let them know. And I even had told them, I don't want Pitocin. Like, I don't want Pitocin. Like, if I don't think my body can handle it, because my body did not do so well on it the first time. And I think after the second time, I think especially because I'm going to keep the same doctors that I have. I think it'll go over a lot smoother with me being like, do not give me Pitocin. My body doesn't handle it. Baby's heart rate starts dipping. Mine starts dipping. Like, just break my water. Give me a peanut ball. Let me walk around, like, to dilate, because my body just doesn't like it. My body can't handle Pitocin. I don't know what it is. Like, I know your body naturally makes it, but when they give you Pitocin, because it makes your contractions stronger, I think that's why my body can't handle it. It's too strong for me. He didn't have to go to the NICU. His weight was, they weren't concerned about his weight or anything. But he's sleeping right now. Otherwise, I would show you guys him. And I still might, but it was a lot. I did skin to skin with him for quite a while. I think about an hour and a half. And then I am able to breastfeed this time, and I'm so happy. It has been wonderful and amazing. And he doesn't like formula. He hates formula. So it's a good thing I'm breastfeeding, because otherwise the kid would starve. I'm kidding. He wouldn't starve, but he does not like formula. He won't drink it. He just spits it out. Like if he takes a gulp and then I take the nipple out of his mouth, he just ugh, every time. So it's ridiculous. He takes like one gulp of it, or he puts some in his mouth and then he like pushes the nipple out of his mouth so that he can spit it out. He doesn't like it. So I've just been breastfeeding. We went to his 2-day appointment. I think he was actually 3 days, to be honest. His weight at that appointment was 5 pounds 6 ounces. So he didn't lose a whole lot of birth weight. And they said he looked good. His belly Reuben, we're just watching right now, but he's looking a lot better. That's about it. That is my labor and delivery story. 9 pushes and I had a baby. My water broke at 5 p.m. or about 4:30 p.m. And I had him. It broke at 4:30 p.m. on August 19th, and I had him August 20th at 2:09 in the morning. That's like 10 hours right there. Almost another 12-hour labor and delivery. All because of these issues with Pitocin. I swear. Next baby I have, I'm not doing Pitocin. Do not give me that crap. I don't care if I didn't dilate within the hour. Give me a peanut ball, let me walk around. Like, don't just keep me trapped on the bed the entire time. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I didn't get a whole lot of clips from me being in labor. For the first 6 hours, not even. For the first 12 hours of after he was born, before each feeding, we did have to test his blood sugar because of those 2 doses that they gave me to stop the contractions. I guess it does something with their blood sugar, and it can make it super low. It can make it so they have super low blood sugar. So anything above 40 they want to see. Anything below 40 they're going to be concerned. So before each feeding, I'd have to call them, let them know he's hungry, I need his blood sugar checked. All of them, thankfully, were over 40. They were over 60, actually, the entire time. So, his numbers looked good. Rebecca loves him. She's obsessed with him. But, yeah, I wanted to finish talking about my labor and delivery story. Oh my goodness. It was a lot. And everything happened so quickly. Like, all of a sudden, there were a bunch of people in my room a couple of times because baby's heart rate dipped, and I just... it was not fun. So... but we're okay. We made it through. I gotta go check on baby boy. So I'll be right back. There he is. Okay, I gotta finish this living room. So I'm gonna go and put on some music. And I will see you guys in the next video.